hit the wall, and all you heard, the lights went off and everybody started screaming. You know, people screaming and howling.
You know, people were falling all over and the lights went out and it was smoking and just horrible.
No problem.
It was a morning rush hour train ride that turned deadly when a train on SEPTA's Market Frankford L derailed this morning, leaving a nightmarish trail of death and destruction. Good evening. The big story on Action News tonight is that train derailment. At least 3 people dead and scores of others have been injured.
And Mark, as you know, it is believed to be one of the worst transit accidents in Philadelphia's history. We will have full team coverage from Action News reporters who are fanned out all over the scene to bring you the very latest on this disaster. And we begin tonight with reporter Rick Williams, who is live at 30th Street Station where this tragedy began. Rick?
The train was heading west from 30th Street Station about 8:20 this morning when disaster struck. Disaster, of course, being the worst SEPTA accident in history. Now, at this hour, officials with the National Transportation Safety Board are on the scene investigating, trying to determine exactly what caused this morning's accident. Preliminary reports seem to indicate that something fell from the bottom of the train, perhaps a motor of some sort. It was dragged for about a mile. It hit some type of switching system, which caused 3 cars to derail and sent passengers flying. It was a scene of terrible pain and mass confusion. One by one, passengers aboard the Market Frankford L were carried away on stretchers, their faces twisted in agony, unsure as to what caused this rush hour nightmare.
It just started vibrating real hard, and next thing I know, it was just going sideways.
It just jumped and hit the wall. Hit the wall, and I was on like the 3rd train and hit the wall, and all you heard, the lights went off and everybody started screaming.
Scores of emergency personnel, rescue units, and surgical teams converged at the scene of the disaster to tend to those trapped inside the wreckage. At least 5 victims were crushed as one of the subway cars smashed against a steel pillar, then sliced in 2.
They were entangled in not only the seats, but the floor and the sides of the car when that was scissored in half by the poles when the train derailed. So they were actually wearing the metal all around their legs and their bodies from the sides and the floor of the cars.
The rush hour riders were heading west from 30th Street Station when the disaster happened.
The car is very twisted, broken almost in half. Well, it's broken in half after the door. So there's a part of the car, the door, the window, and then just shot.
Some passengers lost limbs, others were completely in shock as emergency personnel carried them away. It would be 4.5 hours before the last victim would be rescued. So right now, the investigation continues. We are told the conductor of the train has been questioned by both SEPTA police and the NTSB. He has also undergone a drug test. And of course, we will have an update for you tonight on Action News at 5:30 and at 6 o'clock. Until then, I'm Rick Williams reporting live on the Action Cam from the Market Frankford line near 30th Street Station. Back to the studio.
All right, thank you, Rick. A very tragic and frightening story.
And we have much more on it now, Lisa, and some still coming in because late this afternoon, National Transportation Safety Board officials finally allowed some camera crews to get into the tunnel to get a close-up view of that train inside the tunnel, and you can see just how violent that crash must have been. It looks something like a soda can that was crushed. The force of the impact, of course, on that one car that hit the poles. The cars, however, behind it suffered much less damage. The number 4 car is the one that hit the poles, and it took most of the blow as it jumped the track. Now, most of the victims from the tragedy were taken to Presbyterian Hospital and the Hospital of University of Pennsylvania, both in West Philadelphia. Let's get a report now from Lucy Yang at the scene.
Things are finally starting to slow down here after a hectic day at emergency centers all across the city. The injured began pouring into area hospitals shortly before 10 o'clock this morning, and the emergency staffs were said to be ready and waiting. Although trauma centers braced for the worst today, fortunately, most of the injuries coming in were relatively minor. Bumps and bruises, scratches and sprains. However, there is the shock factor that is not always visible. Doctors fear that could leave some of the riders with emotional scars.
We have a factor of stress, and the victims of the event may immediately feel depressed, agitated, they may be somewhat disoriented. It's called a psychological shock, if you will.
Thomas Sweeney is an X-ray technician. He treated some of the riders he himself saw trapped this morning. Sweeney says he stepped off the train just seconds before it derailed.
There were a lot of people all over the place, and it really looked pretty bad.
pandemonium?
Yes, literally pandemonium. And everybody who was on the trolley car gasped, and people were saying to themselves, like, my dear Lord, what's happened here?
Outside of those who were killed, there were more than 150 injured and taken to nearby hospitals. Fortunately, most of the riders suffered only minor injuries and are at home this evening. However, doctors still worry about possible emotional scars which do not show up on any kind of x-ray, and that shock factor could register even days after today's accident. That's it from the hospital at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm Lucy Yang, live on the Action Cam. Back to the studio.
Thanks, Lucy. Now, the train accident has indirectly followed up the evening rush hour situation. The disrupted train service has been replaced with buses. Let's take a look at the picture from Chopper 6 right now, which is high above Market Street in West Philadelphia, and it's pretty bad traffic out there coming out of the city, and that is because Chestnut Street was closed so that they can run buses back and forth. Let's go on the ground to Dan Cuellar and get the report from Chestnut Street. Dan?
Mark, people have been pouring into a steady stream of emergency shuttle buses going in and out of the Center City area on Chestnut Street. Take a look at this caravan and you can see how massive this project really is. Over here you see people packing into these buses. Most of these buses have been filled to capacity with people trying to get out of Center City and eventually to their homes. There has been mass confusion, and SEPTA personnel have been on hand trying to tell people what's closed and what's not.
What he says he don't know, well, and he don't know how to say all that. Go on the bus and go wherever you want to go.
Police, who have been spread thin for this ordeal, finally managed to get around here and close 55 blocks of Chestnut Street to vehicular traffic and trying to deal with the emergency. This is the scene as it has been for almost 2 hours now, with people crowding into every available shuttle bus, and the bus drivers, of course, shaking their heads and trying to make the best of it, as are commuters, most of whom have been remarkably good-natured about this mess. Here's the way the situation stands now, as we have said throughout the afternoon. Chestnut Street between 5th and 60th Street will remain closed to vehicular traffic at least until late tomorrow morning to allow for a steady stream of emergency shuttle buses. The buses will stop at regular L stops only. The Frankford Market L remains closed between 15th and 52nd Street because of the accident and will stay closed at least until mid-afternoon tomorrow. We have these updates to pass along to you. The eastbound exit ramps on the Schuylkill Expressway at 30th and Spring Garden Streets have been reopened now, but be prepared for congestion in those areas. Also, Market Streets between 20th and 34th Streets has been reopened in both directions now. So there you have it, some areas reopened, but there will still be a lot of congestion in the Center City area. As best we have it, that is the situation from Center City. Most of the congestion will remain through mid-afternoon tomorrow. I'm Dan Cuellar, live on the Action Cam.
Thank you, Dan. Now, of course, if you're a commuter or you're waiting for a commuter and you don't know what's going to happen here, SEPTA has some special phone numbers that you can call. Let's show them to you right now. They are 574-1142 through 1145. That's SEPTA service 574-1142, 43, 44, and 45. And now to repeat once more, the big story today, 3 people are dead, more than 140 have been injured after a SEPTA train derailed on the Market Frankford L. We will have much more on the story coming up later. At 5:30, we'll update you on the injuries, and Robin Garrison will take a look at how the emergency team at one hospital responded to all of this. Then at 6, John Rollins will take a closer look at how the tragedy could have happened. Reporter Kathy Gandolfo profiles some of the people who were involved in the rescue effort.
All right, Mark, on to for the latest. Luann?
Diane, at this moment, SEPTA investigators, crew workers are about 100 yards behind me, still looking for clues, still looking for understanding as to what caused this terrible accident. National Transportation Safety investigators were also here earlier. We were here within minutes of the accident happening this morning, and we are standing right now in what was set up as a triage area, an emergency medical area, where dozens were treated, and I think you can see from the tape here it was quite emotional. The scene was so horrible, some covered their eyes and cried as they walked away from the derailed train. Others walked as if they were lost, in shock.
The roof caved in on one of the cars on the train. A lot of people got hurt down there.
The train just split, looked like somebody took a can and peeled it like you do a sardine can. And it's around 3 people stuck up in the little section.
Emergency crews carried out dozens of injured, everyone who could be carried out. But 7 people were literally jammed into the crunched metal of the middle crumpled car.
Well, the car actually was sheared down the center and in half. And some of the people, most of the people were actually wearing the car. The metal of the car, when it bent, actually came around their limbs.
It's just a lady who was trapped and couldn't be extracted mechanically, so we had to do an amputation on the site.
After 4.5 hours, workers brought out the bodies of 2 passengers who could not be saved. A terrible feeling as we saw one was a teenage girl with tennis shoes on. But the last man cut out of the wreckage survived. Hundreds of emergency personnel were thanked by many passengers for the job they did.
We practice for this all the time. It happened today, and all that practice paid off. The people that walked away from this are very fortunate.
If I got to get me a bicycle or a moped, I ain't riding SEPTA no more.
Once again, I don't think we can express enough what an incredible job the emergency personnel did. They did everything possible to save these people and get these people to help as soon as possible. Diane, back to you.
Was there a sense of panic among the people who were on the train when it first occurred?
Some walked out feeling panicked. One person walked out and said he told everyone to calm down, that people were screaming, and some people even said they were injured when they realized how serious some of the other injuries were around there. They just got up and walked out, those who were less seriously injured. For the most part, I think things were very orderly, and those who were seriously hurt were quickly attended to.
All right. Thank you very much, Luann. Well, the federal government has actually taken over the investigation into the cause of the crash, and because of that, SEPTA is not directly answering questions about what happened. But as Pat Battle reports, people who were there are talking about what happened.
Apparently, the motor underneath one of the cars came loose, and it drug along the wooden ties below, and that's what caused part of the reason why the wheels came off the tracks.
SEPTA electrician Peter Bronner spent several hours down on the westbound tracks where the Market Frankford L derailed 250 feet west of 30th Street Station this morning. But SEPTA officials would not confirm his account of the accident.
Certainly, I would not for a moment suggest that we know the full nature of the causes, but we are told that we should not discuss anything whatsoever about the nature of the causes, even or any conjecture or surmise.
The National Transportation Safety Board took control of this investigation, although SEPTA and Philadelphia police will still be involved. But NTSB officials, too, were close-mouthed about the cause.
We do a very thorough job. I think some of you may find it frustrating because you are here wanting to know why the accident happened. That's why we're here, but it's going to take a while to determine that. We want to make sure that we look at all of the available information, make sure that we don't release any misinformation that might mislead people.
What we do know is that 3 of the 6 cars on that train derailed and slammed into steel support columns in the subway tunnel. Those trains are 30 years old, according to SEPTA officials who added they are inspected on a regular basis.
We're taking extraordinary measures to make sure that we're inspecting to a considerably higher degree to maintain safety. If there is any question whatsoever, I assure you we would close down the system, take out cars, or do whatever is appropriate, as we have done.
The National Transportation Safety Board has set up a command post at the Holiday Inn in downtown Center City. The investigative team is still on the scene, but an NTSB spokesman said the detailed work will begin tomorrow when they hope to move that train out of the tunnel for further inspection. Diane?
What about the crew and the engineer? Are they going to be tested for drugs, even though nobody's suggesting at this point that that played a role?
Right. Well, that is a given. That is sort of, anytime an accident like this happens, that is sort of a mandatory that goes without saying. They are going to undergo drug testing. However, Gambaccini did say that there appears to be no human error whatsoever, and it simply seems to be a mechanical problem.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Pat. Well, you've seen how the rescue operation unfolded at the scene. The injured were rushed to 7 hospitals where hundreds of people were put on emergency standby. Terry Ruggles has that part of the story.
All right? Okay.
Watch her arm. Wait, let me put your feet up.
Some needed wheelchairs, others stretchers. Some had to be helped by hospital orderlies, and others walked in under their own power. But all were thinking about what happened just moments before.
The roof caved in, metal came shooting through the glass, all shattered, and there were a lot of people really severely hurt, I think killed.
Pardon?
I think there were some people killed back there.
Presbyterian, Hahnemann, Hupp, a total of 7 hospitals swung into action trying to deal with the injured.
Right now we're getting mostly minor injuries. We've had 12 minor injuries and 2 major injuries.
What are the major injuries?
1 head injury and 1 multiple fractures.
Relatives rushed from hospital to hospital to see if their loved ones were okay. Many accident victims who had minor injuries were released. taking with them their memories of a horrifying morning.
I saw somebody with a gash in their heads.
Oh.
People were screaming their legs were broken. Some people weren't moving. I'm just glad that, like, everybody wasn't killed.
Well, there's a hotline number that has been set up for people who think their loved ones may have been hurt around one of those trains. That number is 574-1120. Now, that line may be busy when you call, but you should keep trying. This number has been given to us by the mayor and by SEPTA. The number again, 574-1120.
You know, it's pretty amazing. You think of that number of people being taken to area hospitals, and it seemed like it was handled well, without a problem.
Presbyterian got 53 of those injured people, and these hospitals practice these kinds of things. Ironically, 2 months ago, Presbyterian had a disaster drill, and the disaster was a train wreck.
Oh, my gosh. Boy, no wonder they handled it so well. Thanks, Terry. We are now going to get an update on what all this means for the evening rush hour. We're going to go to John Blunt. He's live above Center City in Jet Chopper 10. John.
Diane, surprisingly, Market Street is moving pretty well at this hour. Traffic is being allowed to go in one way. Chestnut Street is closed to all but shuttle buses. And of course, the Walnut Street Bridge is closed. If there is gridlock, it's around the South Street Bridge. A lot of people leaving Center City at this hour are trying to go across the South Street Bridge to get to West Philadelphia, while the Spring Garden Street Bridge to the north is fairly clear. Here are some other things that motorists should be aware of. Because of the L derailment, Chestnut Street has been closed to all traffic except shuttle buses between 5th and 60th Streets. SEPTA shuttle buses are running there, ferrying passengers around the closed-down section of the L. Market Street is closed to all traffic westbound from 20th to 34th Streets. The eastbound lanes are open, but they are moving slowly. The Schuylkill Expressway ramps at 30th Street have reopened, but PennDOT suggests that you avoid using them if at all possible. And along the Market Frankford L, there is no service between 15th and 52nd Streets. Shuttle buses are running there, but the L is operating from 52nd to 69th Street and from 15th to Bridge Streets in both directions.
Just say you don't know. Just say you don't know. We don't know. Okay, that's fine. All right. Just say you don't know.
The L disruption has led to commuter confusion in Center City. Scores of people have been lining up for the shuttle buses to ferry them around the accident area. And SEPTA is using all of its available bus fleet to try and carry rush hour commuters home. But passengers can expect substantial delays.
We apologize for the inconvenience. We'll try to restore full service as rapidly as possible. We can't predict the exact timing on the restoration. We expect this alternative service to be in place for this evening and all day tomorrow.
Days or weeks are we talking about possible?
I would hope it's a matter of no more than a day or two beyond tomorrow.
Now, once again, you're looking at a live shot now of the South Street Bridge, where most of the people from Center City are trying to get to West Philadelphia. Again, if you go to the Schuylkill, further up the drive to the Spring Garden Street Bridge, there is very light traffic there. Again, heavy traffic on South Street, but most of the streets are clear. John Blunt, live in Jet Chopper 10, high above Center City. Diane?
All right, thank you very much, John. And please stay with Channel 10 News for the latest on the SEPTA train derailment. Coming up at 6, we will have updated reports on the accident, its cause, and the effect that it's having on tonight's rush hour. Still ahead at 5:30, a new picture of hostage Joseph Sicipio released by his captors, but with it comes a...
...is down below us on the South Street Bridge. Take a look for yourself. You'll see that traffic is moving slowly but surely. In fact, it looks like it's moving a little bit better right now. We haven't noticed any traffic problems on the Schuylkill from our vantage point. Traffic appears to be moving quite briskly, in fact. Now, Anthony Rosado of Shadow Traffic has been watching the situation from the ground, and we're wondering if Anthony has any more details, if there are any more traffic tie-ups. What's the situation like where you are, Anthony?
Thank you very much. A couple of things you want to keep in mind. First of all, if you're traveling in Center City, Chestnut Street, as you can see by that red X, is blocked between 5th and 60th. SEPTA is using that because of shuttle buses, so try to stay off at Chestnut again between 5th and 60th in Center City. Also, you'll find heavy volume, as you can see on your screen now, that red zone showing you traffic's backing up eastbound on Market from approaching 20th all the way to Broad Street. Some other volume delays throughout the University City area of Philadelphia that are not on the screen. Northbound 38th is jammed from Civic Center Boulevard to Chestnut. Eastbound Spruce is backing down from 45th to 38th, and westbound south is jammed from 27th to the Schuylkill. On the Schuylkill itself, as you can see, eastbound traffic, that huge red zone, backs down from the Conshohocken curve to Belmont. Westbound traffic is slow from 30th out through Girard because of an accident off on the side there. And things to keep in mind, if you're taking the Market Frankford L, it is running shuttle buses between 15th and 52nd. All subway surface lines are terminating at 40th and Market. From there, you can take buses into Center City, Philadelphia. And if you're motoring, again, you're being urged, if you can, to use the Kelly or West River Drives. Police are urging you to do so instead of taking the Schuylkill Expressway. That's the latest from Shadow Traffic. And now, Howard, back to you.
Anthony Rosado, thank you very much, and thank you, Barbara Monaco, up in Skycam 3. As we say, there seems to be no shortage of takers for SEPTA's substitute buses on Chestnut Street tonight. Right now, we have Channel 3's Dick Standish standing by live on the ground at 15th and Chestnut with a fix on how things are going there. Dick?
Howard, the buses are packed as we head home this evening. How much longer do you think it will take you to get home tonight?
Oh, it's going to take me at least 45 minutes to get home. And it's just one of those things, I guess I'd rather just put up with the time that it takes to get home extra to make sure that this problem gets resolved.
Sir, what do you think? Your estimate?
Yes, sir. Well, it's going to take me at least another hour and a half to get home, so it's going to be quite a while.
Well, I take it's going like 2 hours for me because I got to go from here to work and everything.
Let me ask you this, though. People seem to be coping.
Yeah, well, that's them, but see, I work all the way up all the way out northeast, and I got to take like 3-4 trains and shit.
All right, thank you. Sir, one quick question. Are you coping with this or what?
Hey, you do what you got to do. You got to roll with the punches. Okay. Things happen.
Okay, one quick word of advice from Managing Director Jim White. We were talking with him before. Says plan on the same thing in the morning. He recommends either a very early start or, for that matter, you might prefer a very late start. Well, that will go back to you at 5th and Market.
Dick, I'll take it. Thanks. We can't say we haven't been warned. Thank you. Now, to recap the story that tops our news tonight, the derailment of a crowded SEPTA subway train.
Rescue crews spent nearly 5 hours working in the darkened subway tunnels of the Market Frankford L, cutting apart the crushed wreckage of the commuter train and thick steel beams which support the subway tunnels. Injured passengers were pulled one by one from the wreckage and taken to area hospitals. Here are the statistics that drive home this story. 3 people are dead. Their names have not been released at this point. Up to 161 people were injured, the majority treated and released. However, at this hour, 12 people do remain hospitalized.
For anyone who needs information concerning today's tragic crash, SEPTA has set up a special hotline to help you. The number to call is 574-1120. There are 8 lines available for your calls. These are the numbers to call to find out about people injured in the crash. It's also the place to find out about changes in SEPTA service because of today's derailment.
Pat.
Good evening, everyone. In our top story tonight, terror, death, heroic rescues, all marking the derailment of that crowded SEPTA subway train. It happened about 8:20 this morning near 30th Street Station. Hundreds of people thrown violently from their seats and plunged into darkness. Channel 3's Robin McIntosh reports on the crash and those who survived.
The lucky ones could walk away, threading along the subway tracks to street level, carrying their belongings and tales of terror.
It's scary as hell, man, because it's like people got thrown all over the place. It was pretty bad.
All I know is somebody said hit the floor. I gotta go.
Only a few yards down the tracks past the 30th Street platform, the twisted and smashed subway cars that only moments before offered a familiar ride to home and work turned suddenly into steel traps, pinning arms and legs.
I bent my head down and smashed into the front of the chair. My leg was messed up and my back, and the next thing you know, it was over.
How long did the ride last?
In about anywhere from 15, 20 seconds.
And what was it like during that 15 to 20 seconds?
The lights went out. First I thought it was going to be a fire because there was electricity going everywhere. And the windows were smashing in and chairs were going everywhere. And people started falling. And there was a hole in front of me and I just jumped out.
The platform under 30th Street turned into a triage center where injuries were assessed before the injured were taken off to the hospital. A team of surgeons came running for those hopelessly trapped, those who could not be removed by cutting steel, the only way to get them out by cutting flesh and bone.
It's sort of battlefield conditions, not like in the operating room we're used to.
We only had to do one surgery.
So, but you got them out?
Yeah.
We had to do one amputation.
Right behind the rescue workers and doctors came the officials. SEPTA General Manager Louis Gambaccini on the tracks to see for himself what went wrong. Mayor Good meeting with fire and police commissioners, moving firefighters and police like soldiers in a battle against death beneath the streets. And for those passengers needing help from a higher power, priests offered prayers and support.
I went down to pray in my own way for not only the people in the car, but also for the rescuers.
It took more than 4 hours to get everyone off the train, the last one still breathing, but badly injured. With the track still littered with debris, the train still crippled, but officials amazed more people weren't killed.
The surgical team that was here, the paramedics, the firefighters, number one.
We're back live now under 30th Street. You're looking at a live picture down the tracks here as the National Transportation Safety Board and SEPTA officials continue assessing the damage. There were many more heroes today than just police and firemen. We were here just moments after the crash and witnessed passengers helping each other. They're the unsung heroes, people offering helping hands and encouraging words. Some real scenes of horror today, but some real scenes that were inspiring. Reporting live from under 30th Street, I'm Robin McIntosh. Bev, we'll go back to you.
Thank you, Robin. Based on accounts of passengers and SEPTA officials, we have been able to piece together what happened in those few terrible seconds. Just before 8:20 this morning, the train left 30th Street Station heading westbound. 250 yards past the platform, the train suddenly stopped dead with a tremendous force. The last 3 cars derailed and slammed into steel pillars supporting the tunnel. Federal transportation officials have taken over that investigation, as Robin said. SEPTA executives say that they have been told not to discuss a possible cause. However, Eyewitness News has learned that it appears the crash was not the result of human error, but mechanical failure. As Channel 3's Tia O'Brien reports, sources say that it is an indication of what can happen with an aging fleet of subway elevated cars.
From the platform at 30th Street, you can see the trail of splintered track left behind as car 4 on the L train pulled out of 30th Street. It was dragging a damaged piece of equipment that spelled disaster just seconds later. SEPTA General Manager Louis Gambaccini refuses to comment on the cause, but transit sources who have inspected the wreckage have told Eyewitness News this is what happened. A device called a traction motor, the power box for each car, came loose under car 4 of the L train. It was dragged along the tracks, finally hitting the switch arm about 2 blocks west of 30th Street. As it hit the switch, the car is derailed. This version fits with passenger Mark Robinson's description of what he heard as they left 30th Street.
Before we left here, you could hear something hitting under it, going bam, 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 bam. And by the time it got there, the thing just, boom, it jumped all of a sudden.
SEPTA won't discuss any specifics pending an investigation, but officials confirm in the wake of this tragedy, all the L fleet cars are being visibly inspected to make sure the L is safe to ride.
I believe I can say that all of the professional staff believe that the system is safe. If there is any question whatsoever, I assure you we would close down the system.
While SEPTA says the L system is safe to ride, transit sources tell Eyewitness News that a visual inspection cannot necessarily detect the kind of mental fatigue involved in this accident. The L system is now about 30 years old, the end of its lifespan, and sources say the details of this accident dramatize the dangers of that aging fleet. Sources tell Eyewitness News the L car was inspected just last month on February 10th. But today, a bolt holding that traction motor to the car broke loose. A safety bar caught it, but sources say apparently the weight of the loose motor broke the metal brackets that attached the entire motor device to the train. That's what was dragging along the tracks, heading for disaster. So tonight, the hard questions are just beginning as we await word from the National Transportation Safety Board's investigation. Back to you.
Tia, if the inspectors can't see the problem, how can they be sure the trains are safe?
Well, according to transit experts that I've talked to, they say really the only way is to send the piece of equipment out for an X-ray, which apparently has been done in past years. But they say at this point, with a fleet this old, we're really talking about Band-Aids to keep the thing together. Back to you.
Not encouraging. Thank you. Because of the size and seriousness of the accident, casualty figures have been changing throughout the day. The latest from police and SEPTA show 3 people dead, 161 hurt, and of that number, at least 12 admitted to hospitals, and others are still in emergency rooms.
Earlier on Eyewitness News at 5:30, Walt Hunter told you the heroic story of an injured young man named Eric. Well, Well, his full name is Eric Van Johnson, and he was the very last victim pulled from the subway train. Eric was trapped 4 hours with paramedics talking to him, encouraging him to fight for his life. He was taken to the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. We have late word from his doctor that he's in stable condition.
The injuries are confined to one leg. They are severe. They are critical. But currently there are several operating room teams going to try and see if they can save the extremity and to do the appropriate things.
And Dr. Schwab says Eric was helped by the excellent care he received while still trapped in the subway tunnel. A special derailment hotline is in operation tonight. It's for those of you who are trying to find out about loved ones who might have been on the train or who need SEPTA service information. That special derailment hotline number is 574-1120. That's 574-1120.
And that crash obviously caused severe SEPTA service problems. That is still the situation now, 9 hours after the incident. The Market Frankford line is shut down between 15th and 52nd Streets. Shuttle buses are being used. In addition, subway surface trolley lines, which run past the crash scene, are not operating at any underground stations, only above ground in West Philadelphia. All of this is causing some traffic troubles in Center City and parts of West Philadelphia. You're looking at a live picture now from 38th and Spruce, and traffic appears to be moving along a little bit slowly, but it is moving. We have been told that there are some problems in that area, problems especially on the South Street Bridge, and we were told that traffic was snarled westbound on the Schuylkill Expressway, eastbound moving along slowly. Channel 3's Dick Standish is at 15th and Chestnut Streets with a report on the ride home. Dick, what does it look like from your vantage point?
Bev, it is a long wait and a long ride home. How much longer do you think for you?
About a half an hour.
Half an hour, sir?
About 45 minutes.
Okay, what's your reading of this? It appears to me, from talking with people, that if you're patient, the shuttle system does work.
Right, it does, but it's a long while, and we take the L, and the L gets us there about 15 minutes.
Okay, look into the morning.
I think the shuttle's gonna still be out here.
That's exactly right. What's your plan?
Take them.
Okay, early though, right?
Right.
The big question at this point, Bev, is this. Suppose everybody has the same idea, and that is to drive. Other people, other riders we have talked with said, well, I'll take my car in the morning. They concede that if that is the answer, it well may mean worse traffic in the morning. Now, to remind you, our situation tonight is what we expect again in the morning. That on Chestnut Street is closed from 5th Street on out into West Philadelphia. The peak passed, people headed home. Still, many people will be late. Steve?
Dick, we have any estimate on how many days this is likely to last?
Talking with Jim White, the managing director, Steve, he says that for sure through morning drive, whether they can break this by tomorrow afternoon, he didn't know. Now, that information was fresh as of about 1 hour ago, so I think that is about as good as you are going to get.
Okay, Dick. Perseverance is what it takes. Thanks. Now to recap what we know about the accident story. A crowded SEPTA subway train traveling from Center City, Philadelphia to 69th Street derailed and crashed in West Philadelphia. It happened this morning on the westbound tracks just after the train left 30th Street Station. Police say 3 people are dead, more than 160 injured. On Eyewitness News Nightcast at 11, we'll be showing you what kind of problems you can expect during tomorrow morning's commuter.
And there's real concern that on too many of them, the bolt that holds the motor on the undercarriage isn't installed right, and that could disrupt service on the entire system. Today was a day we saw for the first time what the wreckage looks like in broad daylight. This is part of the 6-car train as it was pulled from the mouth of the subway tunnel at 44th and Market. Workmen gingerly hoisting it aloft, much of its guts just hanging out. This is part of the wreckage that left 3 people dead and more than 150 injured. As you can see, the outside of the train car looks bad enough, but what investigators found on the inside might spell trouble for the whole system. This report from Channel 3's Robin McIntosh.
A busy day at SEPTA's 69th Street maintenance yard as engineers conducted an inspection of SEPTA subway cars. They were paying a special attention to the 4 traction motors under each car and its assembly. The National Transportation Safety Board believes a traction motor like this one came loose from its housing and fell under the train. The motor may have hit a switch under 30th Street, leading to Wednesday's derailment. This afternoon, the NTSB's Dr. John Lauber explained a critical problem they had found in the way the bolt holding the motor is attached to the axle. This is the way the motor is supposed supposed to be attached, with a screw and a cotter pin holding the screw in place. Trouble is, that is not what the NTSB found.
Some of the 27 that we found were installed basically like this, so that the cotter pin was not actually locked. Now what did not actually lock the nut. Now what can happen is as the bolt works, and the tendency is for that nut to back off, and it will eventually wear against that cotter pin, break it, and away goes the nut.
The National Transportation Safety Board, along with SEPTA, looked at 19 cars today and their 76 motors. They found 27. Fully a third of them had been mounted improperly, with a cotter pin not seated in the groove. SEPTA officials say shortly after the accident, they went over every one of their traction motors, suspecting that was the cause of the accident, to look for those cotter pins. They say they were satisfied with what they found.
We found the fleet to be satisfactory when we made that inspection.
The NTSB and SEPTA will sit down later tonight to discuss their differences. If the NTSB determines the system is not safe, it could recommend a variety of measures, including shutting down the L until those motors are safely held. But they say it's still too early to make that decision. At 69th Street, I'm Robin McIntosh, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
The painstaking task of identifying the victims of Wednesday's crash is now complete. Late last night, the medical examiner identified the third and final fatality as 73-year-old Alice Dix. She lived in the Wilson Park housing project in South Philadelphia, and today her neighbors assured our Malcolm Poindexter that Alice Dix was a warm woman who will be deeply missed. This is a little of what they had to say.
She was a very nice lady. I mean, she carried herself very well, went out every day. If anyone asked her a favor, she was always willing to help.
She always had a smile, very lovely person, very nice person, you know, and she always had something good to say.
What we want to do tonight is actually take you inside the train cars moments after the accident. You'll see extraordinary eyewitness pictures shot by the emergency rescue crews, images that only begin to capture the true horror they faced when they got there. Channel 3's Walt Hunter will have them for you at 6 o'clock tonight.
180,000 people who ride SEPTA's Market Frankford line each day could literally be left out in the cold. Federal transit officials are considering a possible shutdown of the entire line for a major inspection. Now, that possibility comes in the wake of this week's devastating subway derailment. Today, a huge crane lifted the shattered subway cars from the mouth of the SEPTA tunnel at 45th and Market in West Philadelphia. Even as SEPTA cleared the wreckage, what could be a system-wide problem was surfacing. It involves the nuts and bolts that hold traction motors beneath the train cars. Federal transit officials think improperly installed bolts and safety pins may have led to a motor coming loose and causing the crash. And an inspection today found a number of the engines improperly mounted. Right now at the Holiday Inn on Market Street in Center City, federal investigators are preparing to discuss these latest findings with SEPTA officials. You're looking at a live picture of the meeting site. SEPTA officials already have said they'll abide by any recommendation from the NTSB, even if it means shutting down the Market Frankford line. Channel 3's Tia O'Brien now in our newsroom with the latest on this continuing story. Tia?
Steve, just minutes ago, before SEPTA General Manager Louis Gambaccini left for his meeting with the NTSB, he took time to talk with Channel 3. Gambaccini told me that he is concerned that the NTSB spoke with the press this morning about its findings before meeting with SEPTA. He's worried that riders are perhaps being unduly alarmed about the safety of the fleet. The major issue here, as you just went over, is the installation of that motor. And we asked Gambaccini about the NTSB suggestion that the motors have been improperly installed.
Is there any way that your mechanics could have improperly been installing these things since 1960?
I can't believe that to be the case, given the track record of intensive use over these many years. Now, whether or not there is a condition today that the NTSB is referring to, I had directed the day of the accident a visual inspection of the entire fleet, as I indicated to the press, and that finding revealed nothing amiss. Now, whether there's anything different in that inspection from the inspection that NTSB is purported to have done, I just don't know.
So you're a little mystified as to what they found and how it differs from SEPTA's own findings. What can you tell the riding public at this point about the status of the L system that you'd hope to open by Monday?
All right, I can say this, that we're still planning to open on Monday, that I am going to be available throughout the entire weekend and through the night tonight to assure that if there is any real question of safety, we will take whatever appropriate action that entails.
The bottom line is that we will know much more after SEPTA and the NTSB meeting underway at this hour. There will be a press briefing apparently at 7:30. So if you want the latest, tune in again at 11 p.m. And at that time, we should know a great deal more about the L system. Will there be a shutdown, or will it be back in service as SEPTA hopes on Monday? Back to you.
Thanks, Tia. All week we've been listening to victims and rescuers describing heroic efforts to save lives in that darkened subway tunnel. Well, tonight Eyewitness News has obtained the first dramatic photos of the massive rescue effort. They're black and white still pictures taken by a fire department photographer. As Channel 3's Walt Hunter reports, they show both courage and heroism as lives hung in the balance under twisted steel.
The riders you can barely see in the window are trapped. As these pictures are being snapped, firefighters now arriving know that elsewhere inside car 818, 3 more people are pinned. One of them won't survive. The firefighters find they must work in a twisted steel prison jammed into tiny spaces. A passenger's hand reaches up trying to move while rescue efforts go forward. Fire Commissioner Roger Olshafer, looking at the pictures today, remembers how a wrong move might cost a limb or a life.
The tunnel was dark. It was extremely cold, very confined conditions. When I saw the condition of the car, I knew we were in for a lot of trouble and a big challenge.
Firefighters make their first cut in the middle of this picture, down the car's steel skin. On the far right, the fire commissioner holds the hand of Eric Van Johnson, who is still trapped inside.
Because I had just gotten down off the ladder. He said, "I don't want to look," and I said, "Don't look."
Olshafer and the rescuers point to the middle of the car, agreeing it's the next best place to cut. The plan works. The metal peels away, and victim Johnson can now be seen and treated more easily. Still, he's pinned, and his face shows he does his best to hold up as work begins to free his twisted leg.
The bravery of the victims helped us get them out. It just made us work that much harder.
Finally, Johnson, with only his feet visible, is brought out of the car. His is one of many lives saved inside car 818. Rescued after one of the longest, and the fire commissioner says, most successful efforts in the department's history.
It had to be done very carefully. We did it 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, and that's why it took 4.5 hours. But several of those people, after they go through the medical treatment, are going to be able to walk and are going to be whole citizens again because of the time that was taken and the way it was handled.
And the fire commissioner visited one of those people, Eric, in the hospital today. Eric's condition, doctors say, is improving. The commissioner also issued a fire department-wide memorandum praising all hands for a job well done. That's it from the newsroom. Back to you.
Thanks, Walt. Great story. Turning to other news around the Delaware Valley.
But the big story in Action News, a weekend of inspections on SEPTA's Market-Frankford line. That after yesterday's recommendations by federal officials who said some of the cars could be dangerous to ride. Rick Williams is live at 69th Street Terminal with the story. Rick?
Well, Rob, we are told the inspections are still going on here at the 69th Street Maintenance Yard. Officials tell us they're not going as swiftly as they'd like, but there is still every reason to believe that they will meet their Monday morning deadline, which of course is with the L, is expected to return to normal service. Tonight, these inspections are indeed a top priority for SEPTA, coming in the wake of federal reports which found that many of the motors on these cars may be improperly secured, and also that the driver of the ill-fated train which crashed Wednesday may have been under the influence of cocaine. It would be a long day for SEPTA train inspectors as they moved from car to car searching for faulty motor assemblies. This is what the National Transportation Safety Board recommended yesterday, that SEPTA immediately inspect all 240 cars of the Market-Frankford fleet, after federal investigators checked 76 motors yesterday and found almost half of them improperly secured.
We don't know at all whether or how much of a contributing factor this is to the accident.
Federal investigators do know that a traction motor dropped from under the train that crashed Wednesday. The motor was dragged for close to 1,500 feet, causing the last 3 cars to derail, killing 3 passengers and injuring close to 100 others. Today's inspections didn't cause a shutdown of the Market-Frankford line, but officials say service was slowed a bit. For SEPTA General Manager Lou Gambaccini, that's the least of his worries right now. The Transit Authority was rocked by startling news yesterday that the operator of the ill-fated train tested positive for cocaine 3 hours after the crash.
In the transportation industry, the use of drugs simply cannot be tolerated. SEPTA through court action and union negotiations, has initiated what we believe to be the strongest, most comprehensive drug testing program in the United States industry today.
At this point, federal investigators don't believe there's any connection between the test results of the unnamed employee and the train disaster, but the probe continues. And that SEPTA operator has been suspended without pay pending further investigations. And tonight on Action News at 11, we will hear from some commuters, many of whom react strongly to the sobering thought that a SEPTA engineer could do his job while under the influence of cocaine. That'll do it from here. I'm Rick Williams reporting live on the Action Cam from the 69th Street Terminal. Rob, back to you.
Thank you, Rick.
SEPTA maintenance crews are today inspecting all cars on the Market Frankford elevated subway line following Wednesday's tragic accident. The National Transportation Safety Board recommended that SEPTA inspect all of the nut and bolt motor mounts to make sure they're properly installed. SEPTA says it won't have a total of how many motors were improperly installed until Monday. But the transit agency is hoping to have nearly 170 cars ready to roll for Monday's early morning rush hour. That would allow 20 trains to be in service. In the meantime, shuttle buses are covering the run from 52nd to 15th Streets.
But the big story in Action News tonight is the Market Frankford L back on track for the first time since the accident last Wednesday. The only change, there was no express service today because some of SEPTA's trains are still being inspected. But 100,000 commuters got to work without much trouble, save for one incident. Officials had to shut down the system between 52nd and 69th Street when a man fell on the tracks and was killed by a train. Police say it looks like suicide. It happened at 11:30, well after the end of the rush hour. Action News reporter Lucy Yang rode the rails this morning, accompanying a woman who was on the death train last week.
Bonnie Tang tried to forget last week's nightmare by focusing on today's paper, but the words would not sink in as her mind kept drifting back to the disaster. Bonnie was in the third car when the train derailed.
The trauma of what went on is going through my mind, and I keep thinking of how the train was rattling and how the lights went out and then glass was splurting everywhere.
Taking the same train today was not easy for this school teacher, but like thousands of other city dwellers, she had no choice.
SEPTA may be trying to bring their lines back to normal and riders may be back to their old routines. But commuters we spoke with said the safety question will always be in the back of their minds. What are you thinking about?
My life.
Do you think something like that could happen twice on this same line?
Anything's possible with SEPTA.
Something like that really kind of hits home. You know, you wonder, you take it every day and, hey, it could have been me on that train.
And why are you nervous?
Just because, it could have been you on that train and it could happen again. You don't never know.
The wreckage was cleaned up by today, but as the train screeched from stop to stop, hands tightened their grips on the bars. It was apparent commuters were more anxious than usual. Throughout the ride, some tried to nap while others read or just let the music soothe their nerves. But for Bonnie Tang, none of those distractions worked.
Since then, I've been thinking about it all the time during the day and at work. But I just really am thankful that I survived it okay. I just keep thinking of the people who didn't, though.
Tang and other commuters say it should be SEPTA officials who do not forget about the lives lost. Lucy Yang, Channel 6 Action News on the Market Frankford L train.
The motorman on the ill-fated train, Melvin Thomas, is still under suspension without pay, and the district attorney and SEPTA continue their investigations. Thomas tested positive for cocaine in the aftermath of the incident. But federal investigators say despite the presence of cocaine, Thomas acted properly and implemented emergency procedures according to plan. No charges of any kind have been filed against Thomas, but again, the investigations do continue. Police in West Philadelphia have
in their old seats today as most service resumed this morning. The Market Frankford L was shut down when one of its trains derailed last Wednesday, killing 3 people in the worst accident in SEPTA history. Service was disrupted again today when someone was struck and killed by a train at 60th Street Station. The victim's name is not known at this time.